go to Mr. Williams of New York. You're recognized for 5 minutes and questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you all for being here. I think this is an important topic of our day. In May of 1989 was the last time I was in China. I was there during the Tiananmen Square protest as part of a visiting school trip and spent several days in the capital. And among the students that were protesting there, it was only, I guess, about 3 or 4 weeks later that we learned what the consequence of that would be. During my time, I visited Beijing University, Beida, and saw the Freedom Wall and the expressions of hope and aspiration and desire in the eyes of the Chinese students. Following fall semester, I enrolled at Harvard University in an Asian Studies program, Chinese Studies program. Many of the dissident students who had fled their country were present and had firsthand testimony of all that had occurred. I think we all know how the Chinese Communist Party views education. They view education as being entirely subordinate to the party, to the message of socialism and communism, and they will brook no debate on that topic, including rolling tanks in Tiananmen Square and threatening their own people. Shockingly, I've discovered, closer to home, a report from the Parents Defending Education that has pointed to 12 New York schools that have received hundreds of thousands of dollars in total of funding from the Chinese Communist Party. Have they discovered some new enlightenment of supporting education in America? I don't think so, because they are diametrically opposed to what the goal of education in America should be, which is to produce students, to produce citizens that are able to express themselves, able to know their own thoughts, that are able to articulate their values and defend them against the government if necessary. So I doubt seriously if funding from the Chinese Communist Party has anything positive to do with education in America. So this is a deeply problematic issue for me. I recently wrote a letter to our governor, Governor Hochul, asking her to stop this, to investigate it, to root it out, and to eliminate it. And I would ask your help. My first question is, what can state governments like mine, how can I advise Kathy Hochul to mitigate the influence of the Chinese Communist Party in our education system? How can we protect the children of New York?
Thank you for your question, and I appreciate your sentiment there. In Oklahoma, what we've done is we have required every district to tell us if they've taken any money from a foreign government. We are also requiring them to turn over any funds coming into their district from a nonprofit. What we have seen is Communist China utilize affiliated nonprofit groups to do that. I think every state should do this. It gives you the ability as a taxpayer, as a parent, as a grandparent to see what's going on in the schools, and then we should start banning this practice.
If I may just follow up in the time that we have, at a federal level, looking at the Department of Education and this Congress, what is it that we can do that can help address this issue nationwide?
I know Representative Jim Banks sent a letter to Secretary Cardona asking him to investigate this. Senator Tim Scott led a similar effort on the Senate side. At the higher education level, there is Section 117 of the Higher Education Act, which requires the colleges disclose gifts received from and contracts with a foreign source that combined hit $250,000 or more in a calendar year. We ask that you put in place something similar for K-12, but I would urge you to put in place a far lower threshold. The average value of the gifts that we found was around $10,000, so very low. And as we know from the Bank Secrecy Act, there are bad actors that structure transactions to avoid that reporting threshold. And so I would urge you to have something that is very low and that brings in both contracts as well as pass-through entities, as Mr. Walters alluded to.
It's interesting that we look for money laundering at amounts $10,000 and above, but we don't look for the influence of a hostile nation at a similar level. Thank you so much for drawing attention to this and providing your expertise. I yield back.
Thank you very much.